Oh, loner. What the fuck, nigga? They're all banned. Like what? Except for. Oh, I get it. I get it. I get it. That's pretty cool. So you can only compete with cars that only been released. Ah, that's dope. Okay, okay, okay. Let me see what's actually available then. I mean, that's the good old days. That's when. What up, it's your boy, man. I'm back with another video, man. Shit is getting played out quick, bro. Shit is getting played out. Spiritually, man, I feel like I'm on E right now. I'm on E. I ain't gonna lie, bro. I have enough just to function, just to make it make sense while I'm still here, or why I'm still here. 'Cause besides that, nigga, like it ain't shit. It ain't much shit here for me, my nigga. Like I do not yearn for this world, bro. I do not. I like everybody else. Everybody else got something to prove. Everybody else got something to gain from this place. They always got something to a goal to complete. Essentially, I don't have any goals here, bro. I don't want to have. I don't want to bring my kids to inherit this corrupted ass place. I don't want to have. I don't want to try to preserve myself to outlive any catastrophe or whatever type of event that may arise from most of the global turmoil that's already set its course. You know, it just has yet to come. And it's like it's nothing to look out forward to. It's like other than consumer goods, consumer products, bro. It's to the point where like you gotta learn how to block that shit out too. Cause essentially, like you're fighting for your mind at this point, bro. It's time to be more aware than any time, anything. Like I don't know how to say it. There's like a lot of people who just not aware of anything, bro. A lot of people just autonomous drones just on autopilot, just cruise controlling to they don't even know the end goal for real. They don't even know the end goal. They just hope it's something better than the shit they experiencing now. Like they don't know the end goal. They don't know what type of sacrifices. They don't know the cost. You know, they don't even know what the fuck is on the other side of the fucking fence. And it's just the blind leading the blind, essentially. And if you ever denounce or go against those who come before you, essentially you're ungrateful. Essentially you're entitled. Essentially you must know the way better than them. And it's just, there can't just never be a level of equality when it comes to understanding. There's no equity in opinion, right? You know, one seeks to be more credible than the other. And that's like what creates most of the division you see today. Because what's taking place isn't physically being done. And I mean, it is in real time, but not so much as to where it's immediate. A lot of this stuff is being done on a psychological level. Whereas, people find themselves just not questioning much of anything. And it goes back to what I was saying, like that autopilot. Kind of just desensitized to their experiences, the shit that they already went through. The shit that their minds have already rationalized, the shit that their minds have already drawn conclusions about. Even if they wasn't the ones to, so to speak, define these definitions or terminologies that, we conceptualize and internalize into how we perceive our given reality from our given authority, you know. And then essentially, in the same breath, we discredit ourselves. We give ourselves no equity in that opinion that I just recently mentioned, to carry our own opinion, to carry our own definitions, to carry our own perception of how we internalize our own experiences. So we've been gaslit into this echo chamber of just following the status quo, not really stepping out of the line, not really doing too much to rock the ship, rock the boat, so to speak. All in effort just to fit in, just to feel accepted, not to feel like a cast out or an outcast. And it's like, I've grown to the point where it's like, I'm tired of that shit. I'm done with that shit. I can only be me. Everything else just feels exhausting. Like, everything else just feels exhausting. It's so true because it's like, bro, I get so tired of putting up the fucking act. You know, walking on eggshells around every given interaction, every given response, dealing with anxiety, coming into contact with every single being and psychically analyzing that shit from a place of fear and uncertainty. Like, for most of my life, I had to, I've been, actually, I'm lying. Most of my life, I didn't have to deal with that shit. Growing up, when I was younger, I didn't give a fuck about that type of shit. It's when, I became subjected to, like, I guess you could say the social conditioning of being considered an adult, right? Because what does that even fucking mean, right? So many people out here who corrode their identity or their self-esteem with the idea of being superior simply because they have a sense of seniority. When there's a lot of people with said sense of seniority who really can't even help themselves, let alone help somebody else. So it's just like I said, go back to what I was saying, like the blind leading the blind. We kind of condition ourselves to accept these ideologies that essentially you don't really find these ideologies nowhere in nature. Like, you don't find these patterns nowhere in nature where you have, you know, simply the elderly leading simply due to experience and seniority. And I can understand the experience aspect, because inexperience is real, but it's a level of decree that comes from, passing that torch, where you become, you know, um, I guess you could say, you become a voice of reason, where people seek your counsel and advice, not necessarily, your opinion, you know. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, opinion is your advice, but you get what I mean. Not necessarily your I guess you could say your delegation, so to speak. Um, is we as a people we continue to evolve backwards. You know, where it's counterintuitive to the evolutionary process. If we have a true understanding of what that actually means, like it just seems like you know the demographic or the you know the age group that carries most of the delegation and authority, you know, are seizing an opportunity to embed themselves so that they can essentially, you know, reap the benefits of that, you know, throughout their tenure of their lives. You know what I mean? Like, there's no other way else to explain this shit. They don't see younger generations as a part of themselves. They see them, you know, as just a cause and effect of the world, no different than a tree manifesting in this world. It's just, you know, a seed being rooted in the ground, you know, but it ain't nothing to pull that tree out in order to put in a new one, you know. So these people essentially don't, they look at us like we're disposable. It could be easily replaced. Essentially, on an individualistic level, none of us carry any substance or significance to really rock the boat. Let's say if we was to be disposed of, you understand. Um, it would be kind of like the unity, and I mean power and unity kind of thing. But it's like realistically, I believe kind of what Alex Jones have been mentioning his whole ever since he became in the media, so to speak, ever since he came got in front of a camera. But it's a breakaway civilization, it's a breakaway society. Whereas, you know, what's being tailored and orchestrated within one society doesn't really affect the other, you know. And essentially, one is being set up to, you know, I guess you can say usher the other society, whether they acknowledge it or not. You understand? But essentially, they are to be you know, separated, but also inseparable in a way, you know. But there's some things I be thinking about, some shit that be going through my mind. Like, I ain't gonna sit here and be like, I'm just wild conspiracy theorist or conspiracy person, because I'm really not, bro. I just look at the patterns, I look at the evidence, the obvious. What would I do if I had that much fucking resources, power, and authority? Like, it's just a lot of this shit is common sense. It really don't take a mastermind. It don't take rocket scientists to figure this shit out. And 9 times out of 10, these people have already came out and exposed it in a way that, you know, they understood. Essentially, they knew how to feed it to your docile mind in a way that you won't question it. You understand? They know how to propagate information in a way that, you know, it goes over your sense of discernment. You know? So for the most part, they're telling you their right hand. They're telling you their next move. They're telling you what they're gonna do. Like, for the most part, to them is a form of sense, is a sense of security, knowing that they could, you know, play in front of your face and know that, you know, you're not gonna retaliate, or they're not gonna get the response from somebody who was in their right mind, essentially. Right? I wanted to use an analogy, but that was just a little too deep. Like, because like, yo, like, unfortunately, like, you see these patterns with, you know, abused children, essentially. Like, you know, where, you know, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, essentially. You know, they can't really define it. They can't really put a terminology to it or explain what's going on. Essentially, they end up confused. And then when you're in that confusion, um, you can't really respond the way you would respond if you understood what was going on. You understand? So, but it's like that's just a sad analogy, but it speaks on many levels. Like, when you understand the level of narcissism and abuse that comes from this idea of seniority and authority. It's not ironic them things. It's not ironic those two things rhyme. You understand? I'm pretty sure they synonymous, but it's just like most people aren't really putting two and two together. You understand? And that's has like me growing up in this world. I've always been labeled like this hard headed child, or not necessarily this hard, but like a child, a problem child essentially, dealing with behavior issues, being labeled by school systems, you know, child care systems, whatever the case may be. Um, but having these labels attached to me since a child. And then when you really grow up and understand this shit, man, a lot of this shit, a lot of the adults in my life didn't even understand why they was trying to like, instill such beliefs and principles inside of me. They only ran with it because it was instilled in them. Not necessarily because they reaping any benefit from it. They still struggling with life, still having to go through life, still having to deal with shit. But they felt like it was adamant for a child to be in a child's place, and even that logic alone, it goes as deep as how far the level of grooming and how early it starts from. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe in a child being free to do as they please. I do believe in structure, but I don't believe in, you know, um, I don't believe in a good or bad parent. I really just don't believe in that. I believe that there is a system in place that define these things, and they hold people under scrutiny when it comes to, adhering to these systems at play. You understand? So it's like you beat that over somebody had long enough, essentially, that becomes right and that becomes wrong. You understand? And there'll be no explanation behind it other than that's just the way it is. That's essentially what was being done in this society where you have unfit people who consider themselves to be in roles of seniority, condescending on people. They have no real ability to compete or actually, you know, I guess you could say, yeah, outcompete, essentially. Because they can't, they might be more experienced, and that might help the curve, but essentially it's a slippery slope because while you're on a decline, they're constantly improving. You understand? But for some reason, we've been trained to believe that, like, your best years are your older years. When that's the furthest thing from the truth. Your best years are your youngest years. You know, those are your best years. That's when you're fastest on your feet, fastest mentally, physically. You got more time than anybody else. So you have the luxury to fail. You understand? While, like, the older generation, they kind of have to live from a more fear-based mentality. A lot of times they're more so fear-mongered into a passive way of internalizing their and rationalizing their day-to-day decisions. They just are. They rationalize most of this shit. They like, because none of them have the answers, bro. That's the sad part about this shit. None of them have the answers. Because if they knew better, they'd be doing better. They don't have the answer, bro. And a lot of the shit that you see from the older generations, a lot of it is just talk. Like, it's just really it's just bumping gums, bro. Because it's just like, yo, Most of these people will be able to show us better than they can tell us, and they ain't got shit to show for. They ain't got shit to show for. Outside of maybe a place to lay their head, a job, in a vehicle for transportation, and even that, like that can't be the bar, man. Like that's essentially what I'm saying. Like, look at me, bro. I've been living on my own since the age of 18. If that's the case, but I had my own car at 18, I had my own place, I had a job, had multiple jobs, like had multiple income sources of income. You know, almost to the point where I didn't have to work. Shit, like if we being real, even still, but like most people will see that type of shit and like think I'm like further in my journey than them, and it's like that's the farthest thing from the truth. Like, we all going through the same shit, dealing with the same circumstances, going having to figure out the same obstacles. Regardless if one person may seem like they got it easier than the next. Like essentially that lesson gonna have to be learned a little later. They just got a little bit more means of protection. You understand? But take it from them, the older generation, bro, like that's all it takes to be considered a credible adult. Not necessarily any type of integrity in terms of your moral character. That's all it takes. Real nigga shit. That's all it takes. Like, and it's sad to see, bro. It's so sad to see. Cause like you see people who come from nothing, like they identify behind this materialistic ideology that doesn't benefit them. It don't benefit you because essentially, if you running with your own logic, then you would think very negatively about yourself. Like think about it like that, and it's just sad, bro. Like, and there's no sense of trying to help them. There's no sense of trying to help them because they've never experienced what true and genuine help looks like. They don't know what the fuck that shit looks like. It just comes off as a level of entitlement for shit. Comes off as, oh, you got it better than me. You should be obligated. That's how it comes off. And I'm speaking from experience. Like people don't feel in, people don't feel grateful for shit they feel entitled to, especially if it's easily accessible. You just don't. Familiarity breeds disrespect. I'm pretty sure most people heard that by now. And it's the most truest thing, bro. Or shit, I got family members still looking for me right now. I mean, they can't. They can't. I mean, they ain't gonna find me, but they got my number. Like, they still reaching out when it's convenient for them, and it's like for the wrong reasons. Never to check on you, never to see how you doing, never to see if you okay, if you need anything, make sure you good first. Like, you understand? And in the case, in a small event, when they do, 9 times out of 10, they follow right up with what the real intent was. But like, none of these people give a fuck, bro. I can honestly say that. Me being the youngest sibling, bro, for the most part of my adult life, bro, my relationship with my family has been pursued mostly by me. You could so to say. You understand? So whatever involvement I have with my family is because I've, you know, did you know, the footwork or the leg work to like, come together essentially to make sure that those bonds, those relationships stay together essentially. But it's like recent years I've stopped completely. And it's like coming to terms with shit, coming to realize shit. Like most of these people don't give a fuck about you. You understand? They only give a fuck about what they can have access to. And I'm sure if they didn't have anything that they can hope to have access to, they wouldn't even want to be around you. That's what it comes down to, essentially. If you wasn't providing whatever benefit or whatever reward that might come with being around you, being cool with you, if you wasn't providing that, nigga, they would not. If it wasn't a potentiality of trying to obtain this, nigga, they wouldn't take the time, bro. They'd be better off focusing on something else. And I can't blame them. You know, I can only apply the same logic. Let me go and focus on shit that brings me to like, you feel me? Let me go focus on the same shit, baby. Like, let me go take care of myself too. I don't blame you. Like, you feel me? Let me go focus on myself. Focus on what the fuck I need to do. Like, facts. But to each their own, right? Right? I can't blame them. Can't be mad at them. But I call a spade, nigga. It is what it is. But it's like, you saying people would try to hold you under the same scrutiny using the same logic. Nigga, that's the shit that just don't, that be blowing me kick. Word of my mother. Cause it's like, nigga, I don't ask for shit from nobody, nigga. In the small event I do, nigga, I'm willing to come out my pocket. Just so I don't feel like I'm asking for too much, nigga. Like, that's how deep my trauma run, nigga. Like, I'd rather pay for it. Just so you can't throw that bitch back in my face, nigga. Like, I hate a motherfucker who will try to hold some shit like that over your head. So it's like, to me, I've never been the type to just accept handouts for real, nigga. Like, shit, it's as small as like as my game. Like, I be on a little game, I'm gaming and shit. Nigga, you can't even give me nothing for free in the game, nigga. I'm gonna make sure I take care of you, make sure I'm like for real, nigga. Like, that's how deep that shit goes, bro. And so it's like, I stay clear of all that shit, bro. I've never fell for that trap. And it's like, you know, I had people attempt and try me like that on some shit, and it just never works because you're not gonna guilt trip me because I have a far deeper understanding of this shit than you do. I have a far understanding more. Like, you're just trying to, you want to come up right now. That's as far as you can see. I see beyond that. I see the lack thereof, the insecurity. I can see your intentions. I can see your whole agenda, essentially. I could probably tell you better than you can explain yourself why you're doing it. You know, and essentially, I know how to, you know, create those boundaries when needed. So it's like the shit that really sticks with me is on a psychological level is the fact that you tried it. It just tells me essentially everything I need to know about you, everything I need to know about how you perceived me, how you viewed me, and that tends to be the part that hurts, not necessarily at the fact that, you know, because essentially you can't hurt me, you know, and that's another thing too. When you're dealing with narcissistic abuse, you gotta be kind of impenetrable, impenetrable to the point where, you know, their attempts to try to hurt, manipulate, control, or seek control, whatever the case may be, whatever they try to do in their attempt, you can't let that phase you because that's really their whole ploy is to try to get you to respond and act and respond and act, you know, to further validate and justify their abuse that they already have done to you or trying to continue to do to you, you know. So essentially, by simply removing yourself is enough for their logic to implode on itself. You understand? Take yourself out of the equation. It's enough for the math not to add up. You understand? And a lot of times, you know, they're looking to have you left with the pieces, with you picking up the pieces in order to gain back whatever favorable treatment that you got from them one time before. And then essentially, you know, they're the ones who tend to be left with the pieces, picking it up, trying to figure out where they went wrong. You know, it was like you never fall for that trap, and it's like You can't hurt me essentially because whatever you do to me is because I allowed it in the first place. I allowed it in the first place, so it's like I like essentially you give these people no power. You understand? And setting boundaries is where most of these things start. And if you deal with somebody who's a habitual line crosser who habitually cross boundaries, you got to be willing to take it there for real, for real. You got to be willing to take it there because like their whole bet is you not being willing to take it there. That's their whole bet, and that's like the case with every bully. Right, that's the case with every bully. Like they're just betting on the fact that you're not willing to take it. You're not willing to sacrifice. You're not willing to risk anything. You're not willing to do anything outside of yourself to potentially put you in a jeopardizing predicament. That's what they're betting on, bro. It's the dumbest shit because like yo, you come and deal with a nigga like me, bro. I probably look sweet. I probably look candy, boy. I probably look candy. Like candy, I'm all quiet, composed to myself, avoiding eye contact. You feel me? Candy, nigga. You understand? And until I like, bro, like, I'm not even gonna try to like boast about myself, bro. But just like, yo, they find out soon enough that it ain't as sweet as they thought it was, bro. And it's just like retreat. The retreat, nigga, be real, bro. Like, and it's not to be on some belligerent, ignorant, you know, antagonizing shit like now. It's just like you gotta just know how to move, like in an adamant way, where like you're not intimidated. You gotta have that level of integrity where dealing with certain people, they can smell it, they can sense it, nigga. They can sense when they're in danger, nigga. Like, like I swear to God, they can feel it, nigga. Like it's a feeling, nigga. It's not no, it ain't no words being said, talk all that talking shit, bro. Like nah, bro. They can feel it, nigga. Like on a spiritual level, nigga. Like cause like yo, like they too busy reading your body language. Like once you like, and then it's like me. Once I'm in that mode, my body language screams. It literally screams at you, nigga. It literally screams at you, nigga. Like I want to get close to you, nigga. Like for real, like when really they whole energy be betting on you to retreat. You feel me? It's like, bro, that part I have yet to really, find a discipline in retreating, knowing when to pick your battles, bro. Like, that's the part I still struggle with. So it's just like, I don't know. Part of me be well, I'm in the same boat. I can't knock no because I'm in the same boat. You know, I'm in the same boat, bro. And it's not to think that I'm the hardest out. It's just like, yo, I've just never went for that bullshit, bro. I never gone for it. I've never been a bully. I've always been the one to bully the bully. Word of mama, I done got my ass beat. Like my ass whooped by niggas like 3 times bigger than me. Yeah, bro. Like, you done got my ass beat. I'm talking about beat, nigga, humiliated. I done lost so many fights, nigga. Like, and that's part of what I'm talking about, nigga. Like, it's just certain shit. Like, I don't want my ass beat, nigga. Like, but for the right reasons. Like, one time we in class, like, this kid like shouldn't even be in this fucking grade level, like, let alone it. Like, the nigga was like built like a like this was had to be like elementary, bro. The nigga like, bro, he was like at least like 5'10", nigga. At least like 5'10", damn near like 6 feet, nigga. In like the fourth grade, kid. This nigga find himself got the nerve to find himself trying to choke my man's out. And mind you, me and my man's we got the same name, so it's really we really solidified. We really close. We really, for me, we locked in. Like, nigga, bro, got this dude by his collared shirt because we wearing these uniforms. Got this nigga by the collar, bro, and essentially choking this nigga. And it's like this nigga not fighting back. He over here crying and shit. I'm over here like, yo, bro, let this nigga go. Like, what the fuck going on? Like, and me just not really just thinking. I just start swinging on the nigga like, bro, like connected too. But like when that nigga let that nigga go and turn to me, absolutely whoop my ass, nigga. Like, I'm literally sliding. There's papers on the floor. I'm sliding on the floor. I'm getting my ass dragged and whooped. I'm over here sliding on the floor, nigga. Like, yo, whole classroom had to evac. Whole classroom had to evac, nigga. They left him in the classroom because he was still escalated. They took me out the classroom, had me in the hallway. Shit was just wicked, bro. And I remember that shit like it was yesterday, nigga. And it was just like that's always been who I always been. Like, it was never a thought to me whether or not if I was gonna win this fight, lose it. It's just I couldn't tolerate that shit. I couldn't stand for that shit, bro. And even if it took me getting my ass whooped, at least it stopped the abuse that was happening to somebody else. Like that's always been me, bro. Like, that's neither here or there, but it's just reminiscent. Like, it's kind of why I stay to myself now, bro. Cause it's like I have too big of a heart, bro. I have too much compassion, and this world is just so hideous and ugly. I would literally confront every last part of it. This world would want me gone, bro. Like, they would want me literally gone, nigga, out of this place, nigga. Cause like, there's no way I could just let that shit happen in front of my fucking face like that, nigga. So it's like I try to numb myself out to a lot of this shit, man. Whether it's like distracting myself, gaming, watching pack podcasts, no different than most people. Part of me, bro, is just it has like a burning fire. I just cannot distinguish in terms of trying to like fight for what's right, bro. And it's like I know most of the shit that's in position to be perceived as justice is not really justice. It's not really justice at all. And those hierarchies in place are looking to stay in that position for as long as possible. So if they tell you drinking alcohol is legal one day and the next day it's not, so be it. You know, they're actually scrapping down here. They're actually scrapping. Mm. Like actually scrapping. They scrapping. That was a scrap. Shit like this, bro. Like that's the type of shit that them niggas was all they was throwing shit that could drop any nigga on any given night, bro. And they just all ate that shit. But yeah, let's go through YouTube real quick. See where my battery at, bro. See something real quick. I can show you how 9 day it is too. Cause like this is my subscription. Like I can't even go on YouTube and just go down home. Like if you go home, it's gonna be nothing but entertainment. Apart from this top feed, but you go down here, food, gaming, sports. Yeah, always pushing some shit, bro. Like yo, these niggas, I hate these niggas. These investor niggas, bro, they make it sound so easy. They make it sound so easy. Oh, XRP, XRP. And the next thing you know, you got to become a whole financial Mongol or guru. You got to become a whole financial guru. You got to know. You got to research Fortune 500 companies. You got to go look at their statistics and their paperwork, their databases, and their return and taxes and shit like that. Like, come on, bro. Like, you gotta do all that just to invest, nigga. That's a whole job, nigga. That shit, bro. I'm simple, bro. There's not enough new shit being like innovated at this point. Like the most safest bet is probably like index funds at this point. Or you buy the S&P 500 type shit. Like you're not seeing anything really new right now from any industry, really, of that matter. Outside of maybe what AI, even that shit is a fucking balloon though. Because everybody's pushing it like it's some fucking it's about to make everybody rich, and it's like that's not the fucking case. It's gonna make a small percentage of people rich. Everybody else is just gonna be trickle down logic, if that. If you're lucky, if you position yourself correctly, it's just like yo, so many other fucking industries are imploding. It almost it's like quantum easing itself in a sense. Because as one thing is coming up, the next thing is coming down. So it kind of just the stables and stabilizes right in the middle. A lot of people don't really understand that shit. Like it's getting about. As you can see, it's mostly like crazy. I don't even follow anything that will make you even think that. Like it's just being recommended because like I've clicked and watched videos like these in the past. I don't follow any of this shit. It's just being recommended. It's just like, why wouldn't they recommend the shit that I'm actually subscribed to? That's the question. Let's see this. Maybe this. Maybe this. My main goal for this year, bro. It's a stack, bro. I've been doing everything else adequately. I should be able to reap the benefits of that in the near future in terms of, saving money, in terms of, you know, ridding myself of most of the distractions that I had to face most of my 20s, whether that be relationships, situationships, friendships, family. I've kind of had to sort through all that shit in my 20s. That was like a real test for me. Like my 20s was a real test for me just to see, what I have around me to depend on in this world, bro. Now that I got a real genuine sense, like I can actually, weigh my options and look at, my resources and make a feasible choice on how I want to approach life in a general sense. And a lot of times, like, living up north in America as a black man, bro, like, most opportunities are for women and children. And as I get older and I age out of most of the programs and most of the resources that I would have been able to qualify, so to speak, when it comes to community support. Because like somebody like me, I didn't really come from that much of a stable family, so it's kind of like I'm you know starting from a can of paint. But for what resources I did have, like I essentially exhausted them. So it's like 20s was like a real learning curve for me to kind of understand and get a real sense of how the world isn't essentially as fair and forgiving towards males. You know, it is really not, bro. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Like, I don't care what anybody says, bro. I know women right now, nigga, older than me, living off of their parents still, nigga. I don't want to hear a damn fucking thing, nigga. And then it's like me becoming into a male by the time I was like 16, 18. I'm being looked at like I need to be out on my own by now. Like, I'm being looked at like, nigga, like, like I'm taking up resources at this point. Real shit, because when I needed a spot to stay, bro, and I needed to rent a room from one of my elders, even though my sisters are still living with her, I'm getting hit with most of the bills. Like, I fucking lived there. Like, I've been living there for the past 5 years of my life, and they're like, bro, like my sister has been staying here for the past 5 years. Why wouldn't these things already been in place? And it's just like they view men and women very differently. So that's something I had to really learn and understand. I didn't really understand it growing up. Looking at it like, we all human. We all need the essential needs. Well, like, nah, like they really have cultivated this idea that women and children are, a priority and should be valued on a far higher level than males. When essentially their success is dependent upon the success of the male, which is completely, you could tell there's an agenda behind it. You understand, to disenfranchise, the males of that community or that household, so to speak, and to kind of give the females of that community a superiority complex to further emasculate them. And that's kind of how I always felt, like, being raised under, single mother households. That's kind of how I always felt, like a burden, essentially, especially when you start becoming a man. While the women, they can grow up, contribute nothing, disrespect the household, and essentially, what do they call it? Oh yeah, essentially alienate you, alienate your ass. Never speak to your ass again. You can't talk to the kids. Can't see the kids grow up. Can't be a part of the kids' life. But yeah, alienate your ass, and yet you will still be on your knees and reach and be the one main one reaching out to try to connect and commence with them. Like, and then it's like the men are the only niggas who come around, bro. It's just like, yo, so much trauma and so much just confusion, coming from so much dysfunction. You understand? But yeah, that's kind of how I had to understand certain shit. And I'm not looking at it like, hey, I should feel bad for myself or whatever the case may be. It's just the reality of what it is. I still love them the same way, but it's just, that's all how I always felt, and it's just, I never looked at it like it was fair. I never felt like it was fair. I always felt like if we all family, we should all support one another, unconditionally, no differently, essentially. But, telling a woman who have been victimized or victimhood her whole fucking life, she ain't gonna really internalize like that. A lot of her transgressions that she have towards the world or her position in the world is dedicated upon her ability to secure and appease a male, so to speak. So, you know, their inability to appease and secure that male is a direct correlation to the experiences that they're living now, and that's how they internalize it, and that's how they project it onto their relationship with the men in their lives. Like, if you're not being a useful necessity to essentially my life or my living situation, essentially I don't want you here. Essentially, so the men become disposed of. And then essentially they adopt the same logic. Bitch, if you're not here appeasing me and serving me, bitch, I don't need you here either. And then, the dysfunction kind of begins to snowball. So that's kind of how I always looked at it. I always felt like of their, they was robbed of, I always felt like they was robbed of, I don't want to say femininity because that's the shit that they use. They be thinking like, oh, females' femininity is predicated upon a man's masculinity and ability to, protect and provide. But realistically, they rob themselves of their birthright. Essentially, that's the best way I can explain it. They essentially rob themselves of their own birthright. That's how I look at it. Because the shit that they're determining their community, that no, not necessarily the shit that they're determining their survival is predicated upon their ability to procreate, and then they're vetting their ability to procreate on shit that is superficial, and essentially they don't delegate or dictate outside of themselves. So essentially, is an external force that is dictating these things. So essentially, they can just dictate and control which route and at which rate you operate and do these things at. So like when people question like why people younger generations aren't having any children and all the other things, it's a direct connection and correlation to what I'm pointing out now, as to where most people have been traumatized into not wanting to have children in this world, man. They see how the world treats children. They see how the world treats men. Women see how the world treats women from whatever experience they have dealt with. And as a collective, we decided like this is not no place that you know that fosters health or anything that is essential to your being, other than ways to exploit, use, and abuse them. It's really that simple. And that's what you see, man. And then it's like, yo, as time go on, you see more and more superficial men being conditioned under these ideologies, under these conditions, where it's led by a single mother household, where it's being led by, all these things. And like later in life, you see how these, like, dysfunction arises because he hasn't really necessarily sat down and took the time to analyze and come to terms with certain shit. That's the reality, man. So it's like me personally, like I honestly don't take nobody serious. I honestly don't. That's probably why I don't really deal with too many people now. It's kind of because like y'all, I can kind of see through the facade, bro. And if it's like if you're not really on this level of understanding when it comes to things and when it comes to how people socialize and how society socialize and how society determine what's wrong or what's correct or whatever the case may be, if you're not at least questioning shit, bro, you would never be able to relate to a person like me. You would never be able to. I would only bring you more stress, confusion. I would only challenge the very beliefs that you identify and believe yourself to live by. I would only challenge that facade of a image that you're trying to carry and keep in efforts to remain credible when you was never credible to begin with. Hence your need to adopt. If you was credible, people would be adopting your logic. Nobody's adopting your logic because you're not credible. It's really that simple. But it's not until you actually, push yourself outside of those boundaries where you begin to challenge those beliefs and actually procure yourself to where you can have your own understanding of these things. Most people are very docile in their ability to actually think and critically think and question. Most people out here are just doing bare minimum in order to look like something, even though they don't even know what the fuck they're trying to be. Most of these people are just merely trying to participate just because they don't want to feel left out. It's kind of exhausting, kind of having to regurgitate this shit, but it's the truth, man. It's like it's easier said than done. That's the part most people are not willing to admit, but that's the reason why things remain to be the way that it has always been. And like I said, bro, it would take the same amount of trauma that induced this condition. You would need just as much trauma in order to recondition it. It's your boy.